And then once you hear it, you'll see a message on the screen. Before we begin, I would like to take a few minutes for all of us to reflect on and acknowledge the land we are on today. Since we are gathering with a platform from Sheridan Edge, I would like us to also acknowledge the traditional territories of the Indigenous nations that we are currently occupying, which is the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, the Wendat, the Métis, and the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. As a settler myself on this beautiful Turtle Island, I would like to express my gratitude and how honored I am to be here on the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, where the land has given so much to me, my loved ones, those who are once here, and those who are yet to come. As today's session is focused on climate change, I think we can all agree that we have taken a lot of what nature has provided for us and has given us, and that we need to continue to acknowledge how much we should acknowledge how important the land is to us and how important the land we are on today. So I invite everyone to reflect on why the land you are on is of importance to you, how much the trees has given you, how much resources and materials the rocks can give, how much life that body of water near you has provided. It can be a river, a lake, a creek, how critical we need the animals around us to be healthy, how much the physical land itself underneath you has kept you grounded for all these years. As you reflect on these beautiful lands, I hope you can encourage those around you to do the same and continue to acknowledge how much the land has given us. Now I believe Besma will take it from here.
Thank you, Erica, and thanks to everyone who's with us tonight. My name is Basma. I am one of the team members at Sheridan Edge. And since this session has attendees both from our Social Impact Catalyst program, which you'll hear more about in a second, but it's also open to the public, just wanted to let our guests who are not familiar with Edge learn a little bit more about Edge and our programs before we dive into the focus of the session. So Sheridan Edge, we are a vibrant community of people from all backgrounds and walks of life who believe entrepreneurship can make lasting change in society. We support change makers as they explore entrepreneurial approaches to creating a more equitable and sustainable world. We are open to, we are part of the Sheridan College, which is in the GTA, for those of you not familiar with it. But we are open to the public. Our services and offerings are open to both those affiliated with the college and not affiliated with the college, of all ages and all backgrounds. In fall 2022, so just around the corner, we have an exciting membership model that's coming online. So if you're looking to belong to a community of change makers and inspiring entrepreneurs, attending virtual events like the one that we're in today, and in-person events to help you grow your network and your skills, solve your startup challenges with your peers, and access Edge staff advisors, it's all going to be super easy to plug into what Edge has to offer. We also have a co-working space in downtown Mississauga's Sheridan campus, which offers flexible co-working packages from drop-in to full-time options, outfitted with Wi-Fi, open concept workspace, meeting room with hybrid meeting technology, and coffee and snacks and more. Sheridan students, so we have a special program specific for Sheridan students where they will be able to access our community membership for free. Giving them exclusive access to online learning modules about entrepreneurship and change-making 101, monthly drop-in sessions at Edge to network and learn about impact entrepreneurship, access to Edge work, study, and collaboration space, and more. So if you're interested in learning more about our membership model when we push out more information about it, please subscribe to our mailing list and follow us on social media to get all the latest announcements. So as mentioned, today's session is part of our Social Impact Catalyst program powered by RBC Future Launch. And we want to share our thanks to our sponsor, RBC Future Launch, who we have another arm of what they provide in terms of programming, and that's who you will hear from for tonight with our speakers. This is one of other workshops that are open to the public, also part of Social Impact Catalyst powered by RBC Future Launch. So other public sessions that you can sign up for, we have next week on Wednesday, grant writing tips for startups from 6 p.m. And on the very following day, we have leverage grant funding for your startup with Pocketed. So if you are interested in signing up for those, if we can drop in the link in the chat, Erica, please. Thank you. Okay, wonderful. So we'll move along to introducing our guests today. So starting with Susan Blanchard, and hopefully I pronounced that right, is a senior manager at RBC responsible for leading Tech for Nature, a multi-year RBC Foundation commitment to bring together charitable partners, technology experts, the public, and private sectors, and RBC's unique capabilities to help solve environmental challenges. The effects of climate change connect us all, and through RBC Tech for Nature, Susan works closely with RBC's climate strategy team to support the advancement of RBC's climate commitments. Pleasure to have you with us, Susan. Shay, there is more to the introduction. Sorry, my bad. So Susan joined RBC in 2019 to lead the development of the annual RBC ESG performance report and other enterprise ESG disclosures, and played a critical role in the management of ESG rating agency responses. Prior to joining RBC, Susan managed a team and held the role of lead sustainability consultant at MCW Consultants Limited, an engineer consulting services company. She holds a master's in environmental sustainability from Western University and Bachelor of Science in Biology from Queen's University. With a strong background in sustainability and ESG, Susan continues to demonstrate a passion for driving positive environmental and social impact. Pleasure to have you with us, Susan. Sorry, I'm getting mixed up with my lines on the intros. Shay, we'll introduce Shay next. So Shay is the Senior Programs Manager at Climate Ventures, managing 2 national programs for clean tech entrepreneurs, Earth Tech and Accelerate from Anywhere. She brings over a decade of experience in program design, program management, and education and social change to her role in designing and developing programs that support innovators. She holds a master's degree in adult education and community development from the University of Toronto and is passionate about the role of learning and change. The thread consistent through Shay's work and studies is a care and knack for solving problems, developing systems, designing learning experiences, and bringing people together for great social and environmental impact. Thank you, Shay, for being with us tonight. And last but not
never know if I should smile or not when people read my bio. So thank you, Tessa.
No problem. No, I'm trying to give you all justice. I feel like I'm not doing that well while getting mixed up with with the lines of text. So excuse me for that. And last but not least, Sahar. So Sahar is the program coordinator at Climate Ventures, where she supports the National Accelerate from Anywhere initiative to accelerate the growth of Canadian clean tech companies. After graduating with a degree in mechanical engineering from the University of Toronto, Sahar focused primarily on pursuing her love for humanitarian engineering. Sahar has worked previously with Hands Across the Nations, HATN, on the development of rainwater harvesting systems in Mali, as well as with the American Society of Mechanical Engineers, and the United States Department of Energy to support the development and analysis of wave-powered desalination systems for disaster relief. Sahar is passionate about supporting entrepreneurs in creating innovative technologies to tackle issues around water challenges and climate change. So pleasure again to have you all with us. And I'm going to pass it on to Susan to tell us more about RBC's Tech for Nature.
Great. Thank you so much, Besma. You did a great job. Thanks, Sheridan team, for having me. I am thrilled to be here. So as Besma mentioned, I'm here representing the RBC Foundation. The program that I manage specifically is Tech for Nature. So Tech for Nature is essentially RBC Foundation's environmental donations portfolio. The program is focusing specifically on making those partnerships with organizations in the sector that are leveraging technology to solve for pressing environmental issues. And we do this by focusing on 3 different pillars. The first pillar, and probably our largest pillar, is data accessibility. So there has been identified a lack of environmental data that is accurate, consistent, and accessible to policy and decision makers. So a lot of our partners that we fund are focused on collecting that data, make sure it's complete and accurate, and making it accessible to, say, for example, federal government, so that they can use that to inform their policy decisions. The second pillar, innovation ecosystem, is probably more closely aligned to the majority of you and to our Climate Ventures partner, who will speak next. So this pillar is focused on funding organizations that are supporting entrepreneurs. And these entrepreneurs are typically focused on leveraging technology, again, to solve for pressing environmental issues. They're trying to scope and scale their product to help solve for, I think a big part of it is clean tech. The third pillar that we like to focus on is communities of action. So the perfect example of this is getting community volunteers, citizen scientists to get involved in some of the programs that our partners are managing. This could include shoreline cleanup. This could include water data collection throughout Canada. So it's a really great opportunity to get involved. And I'm happy to talk more about some volunteer opportunities if anyone's interested. So Tech for Nature is a multi-year commitment. We've made a public commitment of $100 million by 2025. So in the next 3 years, we'll actually have an increased funding budget, which is really exciting for us. We, on average, spend about $10 million per year. We actually just recently finalized our 2022 partner list, and we deployed over $11 million. So that's it's really exciting for us, and so thrilled to be partnering with Climate Ventures, who I actually will pass over to now. They are a partner that RBC Foundation has partnered with for the last 3 years, and we've actually just committed to another 3-year pledge with them. So I'm very excited to pass it over to Sahar and to Shay, who will go into more detail about some of the programming that they are managing.
Yay!
Yeah, I wanted to start with yay, but I didn't know if that was appropriate.
I know you're gonna start sharing your slides, Sahara, so I was just gonna chime in and say, like, Susan, we're so excited. We've been working with RBC Tech for Nature for 3 years. We just got confirmed for another 3, if not more. And so, yeah, happy to be here with Sharon and Edge, and happy to be here with RBC Foundation and Tech for Nature. So thanks for having us. Our favorite partners.
Can you hear me? Hello?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, you're loud and clear.
And can you see my screen?
Yep.
I can't see any of you, so someone has to speak.
Yep, we can see your screen.
We can see the screen, yes.
Okay.
All great, Sahar. Yeah, go
Thank
for
you.
it.
Yeah, so thank you again to Susan and RBC Tech for Nature for inviting us and supporting our work, of course. As Susan noted, the RBC Foundation is our key partner at Climate Ventures for the last few years. And of course, we wouldn't be able to do this work without your support. So thank you. And thank you, of course, to the Sheridan Edge team and Besma for the wonderful introductions and for having us. And so I should introduce myself, of course. My name is Sahar Shamsi, and I'm the program coordinator here at Climate Ventures. And I'm joined by the wonderful Shay Sinnott, our senior programs manager at Climate Ventures. Please do give us a wave so we can, so everyone knows who you are. And so before we begin, we'd love to know kind of how you're all doing. So Shay, if you could do me a favor and launch our poll here. And so we'd like to know your energy levels. Are you feeling great today? Good, could be a little bit better, doing just okay, not good, not bad, or not that great, you're very tired. And that's okay. Everyone has good days, everyone has bad days. So feel free to be honest. We're here to kind of, hopefully bring up that energy a little bit. Awesome. And you should be able to see the results now. Yes. yeah, so you can see a lot of people are feeling great. Some could be better. Several are doing okay, and a few people are not doing that great. I know it's the middle of the week. Hopefully it gets better, but I'm glad to see that many people are doing great. That's awesome. And so we'll move right along. We'll be here kind of talking about impact entrepreneurship and clean tech, and I'll dive more into what our agenda is. But before I dive in, I would, of course, like to begin by acknowledging kind of the Indigenous peoples and lands where I am and where I'm based, and Climate Ventures is based. And so as I say hello and acknowledge where I am, please feel free to say hi in the chat and where you are. On your screen here, you see a snapshot of a tool called nativeland.ca. I highly recommend it. It shows the lands of where many nations are across what we call Canada. So I live and work here in Toronto on the lands of the Haudenosaunee, the Huron-Wendat, the Seneca, and the Mississaugas of the Credit River. So acknowledging the land and where we are is, of course, a basic first step in our reconciliation with Indigenous peoples, but is an important one nonetheless. So it's important to think about who's missing from our spaces, our organizations, and the sectors that we work in, and how we as settlers can support Indigenous-led ideas, solutions, and projects. It's a basic first step in reconciliation and also in diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so I'd like to move right along and tell you a little bit about what we'll be covering today. So today we'll start off talking a little bit about what Climate Ventures is, the work that we do, and some of our incredible ventures or startups that are growing rapidly. And then Shay will lead us through some more information about impact entrepreneurship and clean tech and the intersection of both. And then we'll end with some discussion. So I'll dive into kind of about us. So quickly, we accelerate climate solutions, of course. So we work to fast track the success of early stage entrepreneurs, especially those that are working on clean tech or climate solutions. And so we do this by specifically running a set of acceleration programs. We do this alongside connecting the clean tech community, and we also build partnerships with industry and government to scale and fund those solutions, often through things like partnerships. Oh, my slide's not moving anymore. Oh, there we go. On this slide here, you'll be able to see the impact that we've had since 2018 through our work. We've accelerated over 138 ventures with over $130 million raised in funding by those ventures and supporting over 400 jobs. In our flagship accelerator program, Earth Tech itself has raised over $30 million from the ventures that went through that program, which is quite amazing. And so Climate Ventures is an initiative of two different organizations, Social Innovation Canada, that is known as SI Canada, and Foresight Canada. And so Social Innovation Canada is a network of people and organizations across Canada that work towards strengthening Canada's social innovation ecosystem. So our work with SI Canada strengthens the social innovation aspect of our work around things like systems change and diversity, equity, inclusion, and a climate justice lens. We've also joined forces with Foresight, which is Canada's national clean tech accelerator, who helps grow, validate, and commercialize clean tech solutions also through accelerator programs. And they bring kind of the clean tech expertise and the clean tech side of our work. And of course, I'd be totally remiss if I didn't thank our wonderful partners without whom we couldn't do this work. You can see them all here listed on the slide. And with RBC, of course, RBC Foundation being our key partner at Climate Ventures for the last few years and for the years coming up. And of course, we wouldn't be able to do this work without your support. So thank you again. And yeah, I'll move forward into kind of talking a little bit about us. But first, I'd like to know about you all. So what kind of ventures are you all working on, or the projects that you're working on? Shay will launch a poll. Great, thank you so much. And so we'd like to know what best describes what you're working on right now. Are you working on sustainable products or services, community building, generating awareness on issues of climate change or social issues, waste reduction, energy efficiency, water conservation, or if you don't fit well in any of these categories, feel free to choose other and let us know in the chat if you're working on something that's a combination of a few or totally outside of these options. We'd love to know. It would be great to know what you're working on so we can talk about what we're working on, what you're working on, and how they kind of fit together. Awesome, I'm seeing answers and roll in, which is great. And thank you, Shay, for sharing. So what best describes what you're working on? You see a lot of people are working on generating awareness on climate change. Of course, very, very important. We have some community building, some sustainable products, and obviously waste reduction, a really important one as well. Awesome, it's a nice spread. We're all working on really important issues. Thanks so much to the poll shares. Awesome. So here you see a GIF of our ventures waving at you. They are our Earth Tech program that I'll speak about shortly. And so just wanted to give a quick introduction of these beautiful people who are waving at you. And so I'll talk a little bit more about our programs. So a little bit about us as an organization, kind of what we do, that's what I covered, but what do we do for entrepreneurs specifically? So we recognize there's a few challenges in the innovation ecosystem. As you all know, being an entrepreneur is something very tough, especially when you're trying to create an impact. And there's so many accelerators, so many supports to navigate. And so when a program ends, where do you go next? So enter our Accelerate from Anywhere ramp, where we offer programs from ideation to commercialization for early stage Canadian entrepreneurs or startups at different stages that are working on social or environmental challenges. So working for people and the planet. And we have about 6 different programs under the Accelerate from Anywhere umbrella. Accelerate from Anywhere I'll refer to as AFA for short. And so our flagship program from this ramp is our Earth Tech program, where you just saw the gifts of ventures waving, our founders waving at you. And so at the end of the ramp here, we had Earth Tech. And it's a 6-month-long program that offers very customized support to help you improve your business model, validate your technology, and approach customers, funders, and investors. We do this by doing very individualized learning that is outcomes-based with outcomes-based mentorship and a lot of peer support and cohort building. We have a lot of amazing entrepreneurs and residents that do dedicated bi-weekly one-on-one coaching with each of these ventures to help grow them and create their strategies. And we also pitch to and connect with investors, funders, and potential partners, which is a great part of our program. Shay manages this program. So I would love if Shay, if you want to jump in, let me know. But yeah, this is a wonderful program that we run, our flagship accelerator. And I'd like to tell you a little bit more about kind of our ventures and the ones that are growing and doing really well, and I think you would find interesting.
Maybe so Sahara, I can add just on Earth Tech.
Yeah, for sure.
There are a lot of incubators and accelerators, especially those that are technology focused. I'm sure many of you have noticed. I think what sets us apart and what we try to focus on and what we kind of try to value or offer to the larger ecosystem is that we really focus on impact. So we describe ourselves as an impact entrepreneurship accelerator. We stress that from the get-go. We, of course, work to grow the business of ventures that join our programs. And so we measure that by earning and raising, as you saw those numbers around profit and money, and also by jobs that they contribute or support in the economy. But we also really push our ventures to learn and grow and improve on impact. And so that's what we hear. And we think that we offer something to that kind of larger landscape based on that focus. And then 2 parts of that are that, ESG, so environmental, well, ESG stands for, and then also leadership development and team support, which is a little bit different. So equity, diversity, inclusion, especially. So it kind of sets us apart a little bit in the busy world. And that's what we are kind of, we're hearing back from the ecosystem that we're validated by that we're offering something of value. So just wanted to add that about Earth Tech in our programs.
Awesome. Thank you, Shay. Shay manages the program. So any questions you have, please do direct them to her. And I'd like to share a little bit about our alumni from Earth Tech. We have some great ventures that came out of our programs. And so one of our 2020 Earth Tech alumni is Flash Forest. You may be familiar with them. They're a Canadian reforestation company that uses UAV technology, which stands for unmanned aerial vehicles, commonly known as things like drones that don't carry humans. They use that UAV technology, automation, and ecological science to regenerate ecosystems on a global scale. So as you can see here, one of the founders is holding a drone, and in the sky, you can see it on the right. They focus kind of on reforesting post-harvest and post-wildfires. As you know, that's a big issue these days. And they do so at a rapid pace by shooting germinated tree seed pods into the earth from the sky. And so because they're not using humans on the ground to kind of do that, they're doing it at 10 times the rate and at a fraction of the cost. And so they know where to shoot these germinated pods based on kind of aerial mapping software, inputs of experts on both where to shoot and what kinds of plants to shoot. This is both a hardware and a software combination solution, which is really cool. And they've been doing really well since 2020. Anything you would like to add, Chef, about Flash Forest? Awesome.
No, okay.
And I'll move along to our next alumni, which is AltTech. They are a 2021 alumni of Earth Tech. And I know some of you are working on clothing and textile projects, so this will be of particular interest to some of you. So as you may know, 65% of the clothes that we wear are made of plastic, and millions of barrels of oils annually are used to create fashion industry products. And so, of course, in this century, we shouldn't be wearing plastic. And so tackling this problem is AltTech, which is short for Alternative Textiles, which is a biomaterials startup creating sustainable textiles from food waste. And these food waste materials are all biodegradable and carbon neutral. And here you can see AltTech's founders in their lab creating their product. And so they believe that fashion shouldn't come at the cost of our planet and our people. And they're making a change through their work, which is really great. And last, but certainly, definitely not least, we have Carbon Graph, which is a 2022 alumni of Earth Tech. So our program just wrapped up just last month, and they are very fresh alumni doing great. So Carbon Graph is a platform that lets companies calculate and share the carbon footprint of their products with the aim of making carbon emissions transparent across supply chains, so from beginning to end. You can see a screenshot of their platform here, their beautiful UX, colorful as well. And on the right here is their founder, Sam. And so they provide a database with product carbon footprints direct from suppliers for companies, consumers, and of course, investors as well. So this data helps companies have the ability to determine what partners will reduce their carbon footprint within their supply chain, which is really important. So you can input things like a Nike shoe and see kind of what the entire supply chain's carbon emissions look like, which is something really important. And so, as you can see, we have solutions across various sectors, hardware, software, both services, products, and every sector has areas that can become greener. And so there's always a way to innovate to make that happen. And we try to help grow the companies that are doing that work. And so I went through a lot. I'll stop here for some questions. Or if you'd like to add anything, Shay, or if anyone has questions about what we covered, always happy to have them be in the chat, or you can speak up, whatever you'd like.
I think you did a great intro, Sahar. So yeah, just to echo that, if folks have questions, feel free to add them in the chat or feel free to react with an emoji, and we can just pause for some silence and see if folks want to chime in.
Yeah, Stephanie, did you have a question?
I think you guys are doing a really great job, and it sounds like you're working with a lot of really innovative companies. So amazing job.
Thank you, Stephanie. Really appreciate that. We do our best. I mean, we're the back end support. They're the people doing the work, and we just support them, and they're doing great. Anyone else have any questions or comments? We're always happy to take them. I can't see the chat, so if they're in the chat, someone let me know.
I'm watching, don't worry.
Okay, thanks, Shay.
Yeah, quiet group. That's okay. I don't think there are questions. Maybe one thing we can expand on, Sahar, if you want, feel free to expand, or else I will. How do we select ventures for our programs? Like, how do we assess their where they're at, and how do we screen them?
Shay, why don't you take it away?
Okay, so yeah, we try to, so I mean, we operate a range of programs. And so I think probably most importantly, we try to make things really easy for our ventures. So for example, for Accelerate from Anywhere, we get folks to apply to one screening form. And then on the back end between us, so Sahar and myself, and then our partners at Foresight Canada, we all work together. Again, a very busy ecosystem. So this is kind of speaking to that, like we want to try to make it easier for ventures. And so we try to make sure that they are at the right stage of development and then match them to the program that's best for them. And by stage, I mean, where are they at in understanding the problem that they're working on, where their solution fits. You'll hear a lot of, maybe you've learned about go to market. So understanding problem solution fit, as I'll expand on, and then also problem, like getting to market, problem market fit. Sorry, I'm hearing chimes from the waiting room. So if you can hear that in the background, my apologies. And then we also, two things that are really important to us, as I noted about impact. So really truly, like what's the impact you're trying to create? Like we'll push people on like, is this actually going to create an environmental benefit, or is this just like a kind of a off the side of your desk thing? Is it more about profit for you? And then on the other hand, team. So like, who leads the team? Do they have the right people that are part of the team? Whether that's technical expertise, business development chops, and then also things like equity, diversity, and inclusion. So those are some of the things that we look for in our ventures, and then also how we kind of screen and intake our entrepreneurs. And if we're not the right programs, we try our best to always point them in other directions to be collaborative with other incubators and accelerators. So that's just a bit about us. And I think then we can probably move on. So yeah, great intro, Sahar. Thanks, Stephanie, for the boost. Yeah, we are really passionate about our work, so it's nice to get some validation. And in this next section, I think I'll dive a bit deeper into our approach. So what do we mean by impact entrepreneurship? What do we mean by clean tech? And then put forward actually some content that we put forward to all of our incoming entrepreneurs and ventures too, around our kind of philosophy and approach. So by way of definition, I know you're just wrapping up a social entrepreneurship program. So you have probably a working definition yourself, and you've learned lots about this in the last little bit. We use the term impact entrepreneurship, partly because, maybe give me an emoji response or a wave if you have heard this or used this, impact entrepreneurship, as a term. I'm trying to get a sense of like, what are folks using in the scene? Okay, less so. We've started using impact in part to bring together social and environmental, because it feels like a little bit of a false dichotomy sometimes. And so you can see a working definition on the screen from the Government of Ontario. And what I would highlight here is the concept of a triple bottom line. So people, planet, profit is what we would put to our ventures, especially. Also the idea of novel or innovative approach. So employing a different model or a set of practices to a new challenge, trying to take risks through innovation. And then also this idea that like, as your revenue increases, as the business grows, your impact does in tandem. So trying not to think about your business model or your impact model as separate or different, but that they actually are complementary. And so that's kind of our working definition of impact entrepreneurship in our work. And then clean tech. This is a term that's thrown around a lot. So, similarly, I should have done a poll on a level of 1 to 5. How familiar are you with this term? It's getting thrown around a lot these days too, which is really awesome, because I think we're seeing a big shift in the last 3 years around awareness around climate change, the climate emergency, and innovative and also technology solutions to address that, which is awesome. And sometimes we mean different things. We keep it intentionally kind of broad and big because we want to be as inclusive as possible. And so for us, it's really about tech products, processes, or services applied in novel ways, again, for environmental benefit. You can think of that in 2 ways too, either reducing or eliminating negative or harm to ecosystems and the planet. Ideally, though, it's also increasing positive benefit. So this is something that we kind of push our ventures to reflect on, that just reducing the negative is not enough. We challenge people to go further than that if possible. And so, yeah, some of the examples that you heard from Sahar, some of our kind of star ventures, I shared their links in the chat, so you can see some themes there, and hopefully that resonates in terms of what we mean by clean tech. But you can see that it's really broad, right? It's hardware, it's software. They focus on different challenges. Some of their solutions or their ideas are a bit more niche or a bit more focused. Some of them have broader applications, so it's kind of a range. And those are our kind of working terms. And so we work at this intersection between impact entrepreneurship and clean tech. And we believe that, as you can see on the screen, there are kind of 3 realms or areas for making change. So this is our kind of philosophy and methodology at Social Innovation Canada, especially where we grew out of. So culture, the realm of like values, education, behavior change, shift in consciousness is how we conceive of it. Policy, laws, rules, public services, institutions, government, and markets, trade, business, finance, supply chains, economic systems, etc. We focus on markets. That's our focus. That's not to say that we don't obviously have impact in other ways, or that, for example, in culture, that comes up a lot in our work too, in behavior change, that we don't encourage our ventures to also like touch upon other realms, but we really do focus on markets, and we understand our place within this wider movement of change makers, I would say. But we believe that to shift systems, and we think that that's necessary in order to address this massive challenge of climate change and the climate emergency, you need to push and pull on all three levers. So we try to frame this up for our ventures and our entrepreneurs to understand like where we fit within a larger effort of change making. And I do that in part because of the background that I have. I come from activism. And so I try to frame that up for our ventures to understand that I think no one is better. They're all just different. And that if we all pull in the same direction, then ideally we can address these really meaty, tough, complex challenges in climate change, for example. And so, given our focus on markets and going back to this idea of impact entrepreneurship, this is a very simple path, but we put this to our ventures to highlight kind of a path to market, as some might say, or a path to impact, a journey to impact. It also highlights how we try to be really problem, market, and data driven. So I noted some terms there around, problem solution fit, solution market fit. Basically, like you're trying to get as familiar, trying to fall in love with the challenge that you're working on, the problem that you're working on, and really seek to understand, are you familiar with, who it impacts, how it's working, and are you putting forward something that's of value that's actually going to address that? And then, will people pay for it? Can you get to market? Who are your customers? Are you actually going to be able to create a business that's going to work, right? And then impact at scale comes when, and I hope I have the right slide next. No, I don't. Some questions to think about in this path. So you hear this in the technology world in particular, like, what's needed, what's feasible, what's viable. So we always try to encourage our ventures to reflect on that. And yes, we have typically worked with nonprofit organizations. Earth Tech is open to nonprofit organizations. Yet our one stipulation, given we're focused on markets and impact entrepreneurship, is that there's some sort of revenue model at play. So there's some sort of way to generate cash, frankly. But yes, we have supported, in Earth Tech so far, I think we've supported 3 nonprofits. So an example would be like Water Rangers actually is a good example from 2020, or Watersheds Canada from 2021. But Water Rangers is a nonprofit organization, but they operate a program that's focused on water testing in local communities. So you heard from Susan about like citizen science. And so they try to mobilize as many Canadians as possible to test water in their lakes, rivers, local bodies of water, but they sell kits. They sell like water testing kits as an example. So they have a way to generate revenue and cash. So I hope that answers your question, Stephanie. But you can see that we are quite market focused, right? That's my kind of framing and caveat for this. Yeah, moving right along. We also, and this is key for us, so I'll give you a second to read this on the screen. Give me a wave if you'd like me to read it instead. So this idea of heropreneurship, that everyone wants to be an entrepreneur, and that we put forward and we challenge our ventures to reflect on the fact that we don't need more ventures and entrepreneurs only. We need more positive social and environmental impact. So we kind of challenge people again, you heard that from me before, like there's this risk of falling in love with your idea, falling in love with your solution. And so we try to always push people to reflect on the impact that they're going to have on the world and the people that it impacts. So that's us. And moving along. Yeah, this is the graph that I was getting at before. I misplaced this in my slides, I think. But that, especially as I was saying, kind of in the technology and business world, you think about like what's viable, what's feasible. Of course, you can't make an impact if you can't create a viable business in our case, in our world. And yet this desirability around what's human, like what's actually going to fit, what's actually going to solve problems for people and the planet, And then what has integrity? And so we think that we complicate this model a little bit, and we think that that's the kind of innovation sweet spot in the middle there of that Venn diagram. And yet, I show this cartoon when we do our theory of change and impact planning learning, that strategic clarity is key. So if you can't measure your impact, you don't know where you're going, or if you don't have a clear idea of the impact that you're trying to have and your goals and progress along the way, then you're probably not going to have great impact. So that's a funny cartoon for you. So I think to summarize, before I get into some examples, at this sort of complicated intersection of impact on entrepreneurship and clean tech, as I've said, we really push our founders to, yes, create viable technology and businesses that actually solve problems and are going to survive in the market and that are data driven. But we also work for impact. And so we kind of continually push people to assess and reassess whether they're actually making a difference. But why do we do that? What happens if we don't do these things? So I'm going to put forward just a couple of examples, and my big important framing is I'm not saying that these are like bad examples. It's just that we like to highlight the complexity of the work that we're doing in sustainability and working to address climate change specifically, and that it's important to think about the challenges that we're working on in a holistic way, in a systems way. So the first example I'll highlight is first generation biofuels. So maybe give me a wave or an emoji reaction or say hi in the chat if you're familiar with biofuels. You know what that means when I say that. Okay, other people are just getting really tired, or yeah, okay, I see one wave, great. Okay, so biofuels, they're fuels produced by biomass, often bioethanol it's called. So when people say first gen biofuels, there's been like many iterations as biofuels have evolved over time. And so with that kind of first generation of biofuels, we saw that they were often, they kind of offer a bit of a cautionary tale around like, I think falling in love with your ideas and your solutions a little bit, but not also thinking from a holistic kind of systems perspective. They used food stock often from agriculture, and it was often like monocultures and conventional agriculture. And so a few kind of challenges were put to, well, is this actually really a solution that's going to make a dent? And also, is it creating more problems than it's causing in other ways, right? So there was this food versus fuel debate around like diverting plants that could be used for food or feed to animals to fuel. There's also an argument to be made that first gen biofuels like led to more deforestation and biodiversity loss because there's like conventional agricultural practices are problematic and difficult or harmful to ecosystems often, sometimes. And then that like we call LCA, like life cycle of the emissions, like life cycle assessment of emissions reveals that like the impact of monocrops and conventional agriculture, it really throws that question of carbon neutrality to getting to zero carbon, like into stark relief, like is that really happening? So what that has led to is a lot of innovation in biofuels. So now you see fourth generation biofuels that are very different from their beginnings. And so yes, so I offer this as a kind of an innovation in clean tech that is complicated. And so we put this to our founders to think about like, okay, wait, what are some unintended consequences of the solutions that you're putting into the market? And how can you think more holistically or from a systems change perspective about your ideas and your technology? So that's my first example. The next is, there's a specific campaign called the Trillion Trees campaign, but just generally speaking, you've probably heard a lot about reforestation efforts. It is like, I can't stress enough, like, love trees. Been charged as a tree hugger most of my life. It is like such a core, you'll hear the idea of a nature-based solution. It's such a core solution for us to address climate change, absolutely. What's cool about it too is that it's like really easy for people to understand. It's easy to sell. It's kind of palatable. Like who doesn't like trees? And yet there's, it's important to remember that there's a couple ways in which we need to complicate this. That forests are huge carbon sinks, absolutely, and we need to work for reforestation. And yet kind of careless planting practices, right? So just like planting again, like one species of tree in an area that's not suited to that, and can lead to damaged local ecosystems. As well, there's this idea of the albedo effect, which I won't get into too much, but actually trees can mean they don't actually lead to a cooler planet because of the way that the sun interacts with the surface of the earth. I can share a resource on that afterwards, it's too technical. And then also you see a lot of solutions that are automating forestry or reforestation, like flash forest, which we love, we're huge fans. And yet, like, what about the livelihoods affected by automation and all the people that are currently employed in reforestation or tree planting? So, and then also I would say there's like a little bit of criticism in the environmental movement about like how this as a practice kind of takes up a lot of airspace, that like there are other efforts that might lead to that we need to be talking about as well, but that like forestation is just like an easy palatable solution for people to wrap their heads around. So again, I'm not saying that we don't love all of these ideas, it's just that it's important in this world of impact entrepreneurship and clean tech to complicate the issues that we're working on and make sure we don't fall in love with our ideas too much. And I've gone over time. So moving along, I wanted to put it to the group, and maybe we don't have time to chime in, but I feel like there's somebody that's chatty here. Can you think of other examples in your work or in your fields, or other examples that came to mind when I was talking that kind of lead to kind of unintended consequences? Or another way of thinking about it is like innovations that fall short. So I'll put that question to you if you want to chime in the chat, or if you want to chime in, that would be awesome. Solar. I might have ideas, but Stephanie, can you expand on what you mean?
Well, there's the cost of the panels just being unattainable for most people. Then there's also the the materials that are being utilized within creating the solar panels.
Great point. Great point.
Are scarce resources, and then what do you do with the panels when they're no longer usable after they've lived out their shelf life?
Yeah, great point. Wind power and the impact on local species, especially birds, is another example. And then also, as you noted, the big question around where do we get our materials for this renewable energy revolution? Where does our lithium come from, for example? Can we recycle batteries is another example. So again, this is not to say that we don't need and want all of these solutions. It's just to kind of complicate this notion, push us to be better and ask the tough questions around how do we transition in a good and a kind and in a best way to make the best impact. And then moving along, I've gone over time. So what do Erica and Besma think? Do you think we have time for like a 5-minute breakout room, or do you think it's just too much?
We have 7 minutes left till 7, so for that to rhyme. But yeah, 5 minutes within the 7 minutes works.
Okay, it's probably too much to go out and then come back. But what I wanted to put to the group was just to ask you, and it's going to be, we might get some crickets because we're in a larger group and people are shy, and that's okay. It was 3 questions. So just in hearing from me, from Sahar, from Susan, and for those that are brand new to Sheridan Edge too, I know we have some new folks in the group. What's landing with you? Like, what are you kind of taking away from this presentation or this workshop today? And why does that matter to you? And are there any actions that you might take as a result of today? So this is a framework called WHAT. So what, now what? So what are you taking away? Why does that, like why? Why does that matter to you? And now what? Any actions you're going to take? Maybe we have a brave soul, and facilitators as well can chime in. What are you taking away from today? Maybe we can start there if one person wants to chime in.
I can chime in if no one else is chiming in.
Yeah, go for it.
So I mean, the kind of what was going through my head as I was listening. So similar to what you mentioned in the introduction about you folks for focusing on EDI. Similarly, we added a J and a D at the beginning. So we focus on justice, equity, diversity, inclusion, decolonization. And so I was kind of reflecting on kind of what other approaches out there to kind of environmental sustainability that exists that we might not know of or be aware of, because they're kind of based on a different system or a set of values. And yeah, so I was just kind of like reflecting on that, especially as both of us kind of acknowledge the land that we're on, acknowledge that we're I don't know if anyone here is Indigenous themselves, but I mean, majority of us here are settlers. And so kind of reflecting on what we need to do actively, but we also kind of just learning about the history and understanding the contributions that we might have kind of had a hand in, not necessarily purposely, but just as a result of history, basically, an accumulation of things happening.
Great questions. Yeah, you're taking away more questions. I'm just going to share a link in the chat to an organization called Indigenous Clean Energy. I'd really highlight them as they're exemplary, and they're just like leading so much in Canada. They have something called the 2020 Catalyst program. So they support Indigenous-led, Indigenous-owned, Indigenous-operated clean energy solutions that are really focused on local community supports. And so yeah, so in our work, we often highlight the work of others and make sure that we're serving as a platform to amplify the work of others if it's like Indigenous-led. And then yeah, lots more to say about the work. We try our best to support like women-led and BIPOC-led ventures and like be a leader in that. And then also support our ventures in learning how to create inclusive teams through inclusive practices. But we could do a lot more. So yeah, great question. Only got 3 minutes, but anybody? Oh, Stephanie, you're so chatty today. I love it. You don't have to chime in if you don't want to, but Stephanie shared in the chat that I think looking at my venture through the lens of what are the future unintended consequences of my venture is something I will consider. That's great to hear as a takeaway. When is the next cohort? Sahar, do you want to chime in on that? Maybe this is folks is now what they want to learn more about our work. Maybe just like accelerate from anywhere overall. So we operate like a bunch of different programs, so that's our caveat. But
yeah, sorry, I was hunting for the unmute button. Yeah, so accelerate from anywhere is as Shay mentioned, we kind of have like a central form, and then we kind of place you in the program from that, all our 6 programs, depending on where you fit. So there's that central form. Shay will probably send a link at some point, or Besma will. And we take a break a little bit for the summer, and then we start up again in September, October. So our next cohorts are what we call our fall cohorts that start in, about 2 months.
And we can either end a couple minutes early, or if anybody has a closing comment on something that they might do coming out of today's workshop, I would love to hear that too.
I have one question for you. Maybe might be
Sure.
a nice little wrap-up question.
Yeah,
so we have a lot of youth entrepreneurs in the session this evening. So just thought about a word of advice, or you work with so many change makers and impact entrepreneurs. So if you had a word or two of advice to share with the entrepreneurs that are with us today, what would that be? Putting you on the spot a tiny bit there.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I think I hope my message came away in terms of thinking holistically about the work that you're doing and the unintended consequences and what's the impact that you're trying to have. So that would be my hot tip advice and theme of today. But I think additionally, so we work with folks that are often later stage, right? Like people that are really actively raising funds, and maybe this is their second enterprise, and so later stage than folks in this program, I think, and a bit older than folks in this program. And I hear consistently how alone they feel, and that they wish that more people knew to lean on your people. seek out your peers, seek out your community. There are so many organizations like ours to start with, but then also people that want to support you. So like, don't go it alone, I guess would be my advice. And like, if you feel alone, you're not alone in that. So yeah, I think that would be my advice, if that's what you're looking for. Yeah, to end on a soft note. And reach out if you ever need support or connections. You can add us on LinkedIn, as I say, and then by all means, look us up or email us if you like. And that's it for me at 7 o'clock. Sorry we didn't do breakout rooms and that wasn't more interactive, but thank you so much for having us.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Shay, Sahar, and Susan. Thanks to RBC Future Launch, for Climate Ventures, and for RBC Tech for Nature for bringing us all together today and having this session. I already see there's a question. Okay, Sahar already responded. Awesome. So thank you all for joining tonight. I believe Erica will be sharing a link to a feedback form. We would love to hear more from you about any feedback you have to share with us about the session. We are always looking for the feedback to make our sessions better for the future. As mentioned, we do have other sessions that are open to the public. So we hope to see you in future sessions and at Sheridan Edge. If I can just ask the Social Impact Catalyst participants to stay behind for a few minutes. Otherwise, have a good night, everyone. Thank you all again. Sahar, Shay, and Susan, if Susan's still here, I can't see her name anymore. And Jennifer for bringing us all together. Thank you all and have a good night.
Thank you.
Oh, I do see Susan now. Thank you, folks. So I'm just gonna wait to make sure that the